How y'all doing? Good Saturday evening to the Eve community. Hello, CCP Okami. Thank you and welcome
Hello.
back to the stream. Good to have you, man.
Yeah, man. Good to be here.
I'm gonna take the hype music out because we're gonna be chatting. We're gonna be chatting today about the MER a little bit. I think I'm forcing you a little bit into the MER, but then I also
Sure.
I also want to talk about game design today, which you carry in your title. Before we jump into the discussion, Okami, you are a
Yeah,
a game design director for Eve Online. Can you, for those
that's
that
correct.
don't know you or what you do, can you explain what it is that you do at CCP?
Sure, yeah. I'm, as Oz said, the game design director. And really, I oversee the department of game design. So there's probably about 15 game designers on EVE Online that are spread out across all of the teams. And really, our job is to make sure that you guys are having fun. Like at the essence of it, it's a hard, weird thing, but we come up with new features. We do like game economy balancing. We design new ships, what their stats are. We look for iterating on gameplay. Do we add damage over time effects to Eve? That kind of stuff. And so I'm overseeing that department. I'm making sure all those guys are doing their best work and focusing, and really, yeah, that's what I do. And then also I kind of help figure out what do we do next, what are the big problems and challenges in Eve, and what should we focus on next.
Nice. That's a long list of things to do, and not easy, might I say. To make us having fun is always difficult because you like to complain about a lot of
Yeah,
things. What the community hasn't complained a lot about is you. So in the last year, I think you've had probably the best year of any dev. If I listen, you won Dev of the Year at in the Declarations of War podcast. I know that. Is that
yeah, I'm
does it
really
feel
grateful for that.
does it feel good? Like have you like arrived in reality and is the honeymoon over?
I mean, of course it feels good. Like I think I'm a gamer. I've played games my whole life, and so being able to just kind of bring good game to people feels good, I think. And I'm really glad to be a part of that. It's not just me, like there's again a whole department and team behind me. I tend to just face tank and be the one that puts myself out there. So yeah, it feels good. I just want to stay humble and hope one day the terrible fall doesn't happen.
Well, it hasn't yet. What I think what coincided a little bit with your arrival was also CCP Monty doing a lot of new formats for the
hmm
community, the nerds podcast or the dev the dev blog videos that you do with Berger and Rattati. That's that's I think fantastic for the community because we get to hear nowadays a lot more than we used to from Eve Online. Is that
hmm
something that you're doing now by design? Is that something that that Rattati is pushing? Is that coming from Monty, or is that did you collectively decide let's communicate more with the community?
I think really it kind of harkened back to about a year ago when the whole mining stuff began. And I kind of just, in my position, decided like I can say things. I can say
Mhm.
whatever I want. I want to have a dialogue with the community. And so kind of kicked that door open. And I think there's lots of reasons maybe why it didn't happen, but I was the new guy, so I said let's try. And it's been working. And so yeah, Monty's been really great and supportive. There's no real like program or agenda. Like every once in a while people just poke me like, hey, do you want to come talk and say things? I try about once every month or two just to get in and make sure I'm talking about relevant topics. CSM is a big part of that, so I was usually just ask like, hey, what are people talking about? What are people wondering about? And then I'll poke Monty and be like, hey, I want to do like a tea time. We just kind of came up with that because I tend to just say what I think is important to say and not really worry about the timing of it, or am I spoiling an expansion or something like that.
Yeah, I love the format. Really, really
Thanks, man.
cool. Yeah, for those of you that that don't know, the CSM was actually in Iceland. So I saw Okami in the flesh a couple of weeks ago, and we spent 5 days locked up in a room. At least we were locked up in a room, and the devs came and went. But Okami certainly spent many hours without us in that room. What was your impression of the CSM summit, Okami? It was your second,
Yeah.
right?
Um, Second summit. That's right. Third term of CSM
Hmm.
now. Um, yeah, it was really good. I think like I'm seeing a lot of maturity from the group. I'm seeing people really coming together to try to focus, like really to solve problems and challenges in Eve without any sort of motive or agenda other than like we all want this game to exist and thrive for a long time. And everyone is super easy to talk to, and there's a ton of creativity and just good ideas going back and forth. So I'm really looking forward to this year.
Yeah, me too. I have to agree. It was a fantastic week. It's always it's more work than you think going into it because you're very excited in the beginning, and then you realize, okay, this is going to be a lot of topics for 5 days. It's going to be a lot of meetings, and we try to address everything, but even in that week, we don't get to address, I think, every single topic that we want to
Yeah,
talk about.
absolutely.
Even this past week, I I was going back through the notes from the summit and everything. I was thought, oh, why didn't we talk about this or the other? And it like overall, I still the fact that CCP does something like this that you know affords itself something like the CSM is just really cool for the community, but like probably also very cool for CCP because you have a really good player focus group and advocacy group there
Hmm.
helping you along.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Before we jump into MER, I want to congratulate you on one thing that I don't even know how big a role this plays, but you know that I'm a finance guy in game and out of game,
Yep,
and
yep.
so I always follow the earnings reports from Pearl Abyss, and the latest numbers came out a couple of days ago, and it, Eve Online as an IP had the ninth consecutive year-over-year growth quarter, which is for a 23-year-old game absolutely incredible. Is that something that gets talked about in the CCP offices, or you know, is that kind of like the editorial team in a newspaper that doesn't want to know about advertising?
No, we definitely talk about it and we celebrate when we have our wins for sure. It's it's challenging because we're always like expansion, next expansion, next expansion. So we're like so focused. It's like
Yeah.
we're on this marathon, but we do make sure to kind of pull over and be like, hey guys, hey, we did something good. It's what we're doing is working, and congratulations. So yeah, it feels great. And I think for me, it's just an indication of how healthy the game is, how vibrant, and how much longer it can live for us as well.
Yeah, and how good a job the monetization team is doing, I guess also.
Absolutely,
You need
yeah.
active players, but we've seen a lot of things, I think, change and tried in the monetization team over the last few years, and
Hmm.
it seems to be, it seems to be working. At least the bottom line says it's working really well, and
Yeah,
it's a good foundation for the game to continue to exist and to grow going forward.
yeah,
All right.
absolutely. You got it, man. Those guys are working hard.
Yeah, yeah. I get to talk to them a lot because I have a lot of opinions
Hmm.
on that sort of stuff. So, on my time on the CSM is, already going into the third term or no, in the middle of the third term, I've gotten to know the monetization team really well, and I, think it's going in a good direction.
Yeah.
All right, my my favorite stream of the month every month is the monthly economic report, and I think this is the second time that you're joining me for a discussion on the MER. It's
Hmm.
it's also very unique that a game has something like a monthly economic report. I don't know, like when you joined the game. Was that something that you already knew, or did you kind of stumble onto Eve and then said, "Holy crap, they have an MER"?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was I've been in Eve in and out for many years since
Mhm.
like 2005. And when I started, definitely I don't remember seeing anything like this. And then I came back like a year or so before I joined the team. And yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. It's both like phenomenal and scary sometimes. I'm like, wow, you show that? Okay,
Yeah, yeah. And I
cool.
always
Yeah,
try them to go one level deeper. I always try to say, "Okay,
yeah.
now break out bot bans," you know? But I understand why team security
Yeah.
might not want to do that, and,
Mm.
I make people like you nervous on the other side sometimes.
I'm not
Um,
that nervous. Tempt me hard enough, and we'll see what I'll show you.
um, so I'm actually going to hide that chat box to not to not, hide any of the data because we need all of the data. This is the slide that I always start with on the MER, right? This shows the overall, I guess, macro values of mining, production, and destruction in EVE Online, and it's looking at this, it's very obvious, or a few trends are very obvious. One is, production has been growing since 2021, essentially. This looks at value, so some of that is also, inflation and deflation within the game, but overall, you can say pretty steadily, okay, production is increasing overall. Mining
Yep.
is also increasing, a bit slower, but you can see that certainly, apparently, releasing a mining expansion helps in making people mine more. You could say that's obvious,
Who'd have thought?
but actually, Eve is Eve, so you gotta do sometimes you gotta do a lot more than just release the content. So congratulations on at least getting people to mine. That's big. Overall, what's also obvious here, though, is that destruction has been rather steady over time. At least if you look at what the last wars did in, like, 2021 and 2022, you see the massive amounts of destruction that was going on. So if you're looking at this chart, it's mostly you gotta assume people are building up stockpiles, uh, without huge destruction to follow. For
Yep.
you as a game design director, like, is this something that is this an important KPI? Is this something you think about? Is this something you worry about?
Hmm. Yeah, good questions. I mean, I think all of these indices are exactly that. They're indicators of something, and they all need to kind of be tended to and in a healthy place. Sometimes it's easier to maybe focus on one that's more problematic than another. Um, Destruction's probably going to almost always be one of the harder ones to actually like impact, because that's kind of where we want you guys to start taking action, right? So we can dangle carrots, and we can try to come up with new features and speculate that this might drive you to want to fight more. um or there's other factors of like how expensive ships are, and people are scared to take them out and stuff like that. So yeah, it matters. um I think at the end of the day, if we focus on it too much, though, it might detract from also just trying to seek like creating just fun and joy in the game, and like trying new things. And like part of why I think the mining expansion was successful is we just took mining and said, let's just make it a bit better. Let's just make mining a bit better. And then people were curious to come try it out. So if we focus so much on like the just the economic part of it, and not the sort of interactions and the core fundamental, like, is this thing cool or fun or interesting, then we're losing sight of kind of the holistic game design.
For sure, I agree. Like, this in the end, this is just a number, and it would be much more important if people were having fun, regardless of destruction. I
Hmm.
think what if you if you have your ear on the community a lot of people in the Eve community, I think, equate destruction with fun, and rightfully so, because
Hmm.
that's what Eve
Yeah.
is famous for, and that's what people talk about the most, in their memories. But
Hmm.
I think, taking it away from just the number, if we're talking about we often talk about conflict drivers, I think, on the CSM and in your also in your dev blogs. Wha- Like, what's your thought now, having spent a couple of years with EVE Online? What's your thought of the current state of conflict drivers in EVE? Is that something that you think needs a lot of work? Is it in a good place? What's your current thought?
Yeah, I think there's something that need constant tending, like the current set of conflict drivers. Um, I'm not sure they all landed as exactly we'd hope. So Metanox,
Mhm.
skyhooks, things like that. Um, they work. There's some core elements that are good. Um, and to me, it's always a balance between, like, do we come back to those things and how much energy should we put into each of those elements versus like maybe something new like phased fields that might end up being a bigger conflict driver or somewhat of a conflict driver at least. Um, and so yeah, I think they're okay. I think that they need some tending, and uh, some are doing better than others. Maybe like ESS and stuff is in an okay place, but um, yeah, I'd love to make some space to come back to the few that we've released over the last year or two.
If I may leave the MER for 1 second, you recently released this dev blog here, with
Mhm.
Rattati and Berger. And in there, you talk about the roadmap for the next 3 expansions, is right? And you talk
Yep.
about a lot about the military campaigns and theater of war, I think it's called, right? Um, I Is that do you see that driving that that in itself, that concept driving a lot of conflict in EVE Online?
I think it has the potential to. Um, it's going to end up being a pretty robust tool set for us to create um, goals for everybody that have like real meaningful stakes in the universe. Um, and with those stakes, like potential changes, new stations, changed networks, um, new jump bridges, change taxes, etc. I think the like desire to pursue and effectively vote through action could could create conflict. And in the way that we're trying to set those goals, we're going to leave ourselves open to be able to make conflict drivers a part of that as well. So um, I don't think inherently it's going to be the conflict driver, but I think we're going to have a set of tools that we can use to experiment and try to promote conflict in interesting ways.
Can you, for those that are new to the concept of the military campaigns, can you sum up what it is and what what the design thought is behind the military campaigns?
Yeah, I'll do my best here. I just don't remember what we said, but screw it. Like campaigns really are, and military campaigns are a way for us to have sort of our in-game entities like empires manifest their goals and objectives in a more sort of like opaque way that players can participate in. So they'll present everybody with a set of goals every expansion, and those by achieving those goals and helping the empires that you decide to ally with, there'll be tangible and real outcomes and impacts in the following expansions. As I mentioned, like um, building new gates to
Mhm.
different systems, changing gates, destroying structures or building new structures. And it's also a narrative tool. Like it's a way for us to continue to surface like the drama between the empires and allow you to sort of participate in that. So that's kind of it at a high level.
Was part of it was part of this design concept also looking at the PvE side of Eve? Because I know that's something that I had in my presentation for the CSM, and I've been, you know, uh, I don't wanna say pushing it, but mentioning it
Hmm.
at many sides, that I think, there are large parts of PvE in EVE Online that haven't changed in 20 years, and then there are some new PvE elements. I say new, they're already like Abyssal Space is 5 years old now, I think, but newish. That is, really fun and engaging, I think. Um, is wanting to redesign PvE a part of these military campaigns?
Yeah, I think you mentioned PV a lot at the summit, which I
Mhm,
appreciate. I think there's like it's a much bigger part of Eve than lots of people think about. Like, of course, people are fighting, but we're not having those epic big battles all the time. You're doing something else often, and often that's PVE.
mhm.
Um, Part of this, the structure of campaigns will allow us to lean into existing PvE content, but absolutely new PvE content and how we use it is absolutely in the on the track as a part of this too, and some of the future thinking around other things we'd like to do in Eve as well.
Somebody posted in chat that Abyssals came out in 2018. I feel so old. Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
It's like it's still new content for me. Um, going back to the MER, I'm gonna skip some of the graphs that I usually do, and I won't ask you a question about everything, but there are some things I just need to cover, Okami, as part of
Sure.
the MER, right? There's something going on with mining, and that is the Imperium has really, really settled in. So we have 6.8
Yeah.
trillion here mined in Innsmother. That is twice what Fountain is doing, and granted, I think Init has never been the strongest. Have never been the strongest miners, but this is quite a big number. Only rivaled by nope, not even Veil of the Silent here, not even Frat at 3.9, and we know if Innsmother isn't even the only region the Imperium has. So
Hmm.
we'll see that on the moon mining chart later, even more clear. But clearly, the Imperium has settled in and is not only mining but also producing a ton. So here, the production numbers are also very large. But Innsmother is the only one, or Innsmother and the Forge are the only ones that are rivaling, or the Veil of the Silent are the only ones that are rivaling the Forge overall. And then we have
Yeah.
uh, Ratting. Let's see here, the NPC bounties. Uh, that's where Fountain shines here at 7 trillion in bounties paid out, and only beat out by Veil of the Silent with 8 trillion. So, um, yeah, and there's only one place to trade, which is Cheetah. This
For
is
now.
yes, yes, for now. Burn Jita. I know people always ask me, bring back Burn Jita. Which even as a trader, people always assume that I was really against Burn Jita events, whereas as a trader, you're pretty much happy about any interruption there is that makes the market move. So if you if you can plan around it, if you can profit from it, then throw it at me, throw it at me. This this is the asteroid ore mined over time, and this is very very clearly the cataclysm impact here in November. And you can see mining going up by 30, 40, 50% overall. Would you say this graph, like based on this graph alone, you would say cataclysm was a success?
Um, yeah. Catalyst.
Sorry,
I,
sorry. Yeah,
that's all good.
cataclysm was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's
another game.
already old.
Um, but yeah, absolutely. Like I, it's always speculative on our part. Like we can come up with all these new pieces of content. We can come out with new toys, and then they can come out and people go like, yeah, we don't really want to do that. So seeing this, it does say that people did want to do that, and they're seeing the value and interest in all of that content. So yeah, I'd say it's absolutely a success.
Great. And you mentioned phased fields earlier, and prismaticide. I know from personal experience and from what I hear talking on the CSM and with other Eve players that it might not have the as big of an effect in terms of bringing Rorquals back out on the field as you might have expected, right? I mean, or
Mhm.
question: did you expect more Rorquals out on fields through Prismaticite or through phase fields?
Um, yeah, I think we always hope to get more out there. It definitely was part of the, you know, initial design and thought is how can we get more oracles out there. But at the same time, with where it's at and how it's being used, we're not unhappy with that either.
Uh, I don't know how far you get um, into the actual economics of it, but so Prismaticide right now is probably not as. I mean, it's very hard to predict the actual, let's call it, exchange rate or alchemy rate of Prismaticide before the expansion. Can you talk about, are there, like, is that something that you would consider tweaking at some point in the future, or do you say no, that's the system and that's how the alchemy is going to work?
Yeah, I mean, as you've seen and everybody, like we're definitely doing a lot more tweaking and balance over time. So roughly every 3 months, where we have a major update, then an expansion, then a major update, then an expansion. And so I'm open to balancing pretty much anything if it's not working
Mhm.
on a good timeline. I'd say it's kind of hitting our goals right now, so we're pretty happy with the amount it's being mined, how it's being used in general. Um, we've seen almost like a 50% increase in mining ships being destroyed,
Mhm.
largely due to those sites, and yeah, I think people are having fun with it, and there's a lot of value both in low sec and null around them. If a site pops up, it's definitely being done by someone. So people are enjoying the content. So yeah, I mean, we'll come back to it if it's not serving its purpose. I also think like we haven't really gotten into a state where people have needed to use the alchemy
Yep.
strongly for a purpose yet, and
Yep.
so until that happens, it's hard to really prove out whether it's truly working or not.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should explain that for those viewers that haven't had experience with Prismaticide. So it's essentially a a stop or a ceiling, a price ceiling on certain minerals because Prismaticide you can convert. That's why we say alchemy. You can convert the ore into various different minerals at a much worse exchange rate than in other ores, or a refining rate. Sorry, I'm too much of a finance guy. Um, and so right now it might be because mineral prices are relatively cheap right now because supplies are high. There might not be a reason to convert prismaticide at a high rate. But if we hit in any of the minerals a bottleneck or a very, very high price, then it will be very interesting for alliances to have large amounts of prismaticide around to counteract price ceilings and bottlenecks pretty much.
Yep. And we're paying attention to the data overall, looking at how much is being done through reactions versus refining. We're looking at the
Yeah.
stockpiles, and it all looks pretty like kind of on the nose for what we hoped for in our balances. So I'd say it's in a healthy state, and yeah, let's see what the future shows.
Yeah. And some people will always just react it for fun to see what happens. I
Yeah.
know my Eve players. They're not always
hmm
economically sensible.
Sometimes
You
you've gotta
you just gotta
roll
hit that
those
button.
dice.
Yeah. Like mute plasmids. It's just gotta
Yeah.
hit that button. All right. Let's quickly go. So ice mining, this is pretty much what the winter Nexus event does to this
Yep.
graph. But that happens every year and it's nothing surprising. Although I have to say, I'm kind of I told the MER team, Okami, so you don't have to pass this on, but I kind of don't
Sure.
like the fact that event ice is in here. You know what I mean? Because the event ice,
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't enter the economy. It gets traded in for other rewards, right? So
Mhm.
this is
I
this is
feel you.
quite yeah, this is quite stunning. This is Moon Materials by Source, and here you can see that uh, apparently one very large alliance has gotten some moons online, because you see the spike here, and that is pretty crazy on all fronts from R8 to R64 moons. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that Detroit and Innsmother here are, for the first time, I think 1 and 2 in moon material mined. And you can also see that the amount of Metanox proliferation here is quite low. So there's a lot of manual moon mining going on, whereas you know, and this might be because this is a new decision, a relatively newly populated zone now, and so the trend seems to be going back towards refineries rather than metanoxes, which is it's also a design decision, right, Okami? I mean, you guys have increased the cost for Metanoxes several times over the last year, so we've moved away from, you know, very, very high 60, 70, 80% Metanox proliferation to back to more a 50-50 state overall, I would say. So that's by design, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think we've had a lot of feedback as well about where Metanox is, and as I mentioned before, like I think there are other improvements we could do, but really, like that's kind of our one major lever we can pull to impact it right now. So that's the one we've been pulling, and it is having an effect over time. So it is by design for the time.
Yeah. And somebody in chat is asking, yes, you get better yields if you manually mine it. You also get a different set of materials and materials in the end. That's why it does have an economic impact, whether it's Metanoxed or not, especially on pyrite, for example, and
Yeah.
Mexilon, I believe. Um, this is my favorite graph always, because this it shows us the ISK Sinks and Faucets, which, you know, some people disagree with me, but I feel like is the most important thing about the economy in the game,
Hmm.
because this is something that, you know, historically Eve has done really well. So we see other MMOs have massive inflation, or at some point, you know, you, you need to shave some zeros off your currency because it's getting ridiculous. But Eve has had a fairly good handle on inflation, which is pretty impressive. And the reason is this equation is that you always have a pretty good relationship between ISK sinks and faucets. Now,
Hmm.
in January, it wasn't necessarily fantastic because we did. I need to pull up my other graph here. I think you won't be surprised, CCP Okami, that we have this data in Power BI, of course, to look at so we can
Of
analyze it
course.
a little better. Uh, it's a bit slow to load right now. Here, I'm going to pull this in here. This is our good friend Matthew puts this in Power BI, and what we can see here is a little bit better breakdown of the development of faucets over time. And so one
Hmm.
thing that you can see here is that actually faucets have hit a new high in January, and
Yep.
partly this is because we just saw there's a couple of regions that have really ramped up ratting, which is a big source of this. But also, you know, Winter Nexus is also a big
Hmm.
faucet every year. It was less this year because fewer overseer personal effects, but you know, it's still very high, and that's typically okay if the sinks follow suit. The sinks have gone down a little bit because we had less market transaction, less market velocity going on. That most of that depends on whether there are good flex sales going on, because that's where most of the transaction fees get in
Yep.
there. In terms of game design, so like, is this something you look at? Is that just, you know, is that somebody else's you know, I don't know her CCP name. Is that somebody else's problem?
Yeah.
Uh, She won't tell me
Well,
her CCP name,
her
you know?
CCP. I call her CCP Imposto, which is like I
Okay.
believe it's Portuguese for taxes. So
Okay. All right.
um,
Very good.
yeah, I mean that is a game design thing. It touches many people. This is something that something CCP Rotati cares about a lot as well. Um, you know, really uh, a healthy, balanced game should care about this thing, and like you mentioned, Eve um, has done a fairly good job over time. Now, is this a problem right now? I'm not sure. I don't think I'm feeling it's not yet. I think there's been enough big changes that we need to see how things play out over a couple more months before we make any other major adjustments. But it's, as you point out, like it's something for us to watch now.
You can't control all of it, right? I mean, there's sometimes you just gotta see how the player base reacts because,
Yeah.
a lot of times a one piece of monetization, be it new packs or a new Eden Store sale, an Omega Time sale, that all can have a massive impact on the actual sinks and faucets, mostly the sinks in that example. And, so I do think it's important to keep an eye on it overall. Like if we look at some of these other graphs, which this is faucets over time, and this is where you see the big spikes that are events. So,
Hmm.
a lot of this. Sometimes the thought is, well, how many events can you afford without causing inflation in the game? I think that's probably the biggest design decision that you have, and I am guessing because, we didn't see this big spike here for this is always the Winter Nexus event, and this one before it is the Crimson Harvest event. So, last year we still had 2 massive spikes, and this year that essentially went down to 1 because the Winter Nexus, event was a little bit more, uh I guess tuned down, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
or tuned down. Um, is that something is that a direct response to the ISK supply in the game, or how are those decisions made?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking both at where the supply is currently when we're making our events, and historically what we're getting out of our events, and also how many players we expect that will be playing in the events every year, and we have to make some decisions around that. And of course, there's like history and historic. So if you come in expecting a certain thing from the event and that
Mm.
doesn't deliver, that can feel bad too. So it's a careful balance of like, yeah, let's bring it down, but maybe not too much, and doing some fun game designer math to land at a good place. But yeah, absolutely, it's kind of a factor of all of those things.
I still think we're gonna see the money supply graph, a little bit later, but um, we'll see that, you know, we are trending a little bit higher than we were in the last few months, but, we'll look at it when we get there. This I just want to quickly tell, um, the viewers. So this is where you see the transaction tax going down. Last year, we still had we had a tax cut for the longest time. There was the sales tax, was halved for, I don't know, I think 9 months or so, and then it went back to its natural self, or its natural self, but back to around, 7-9% base. And what what this does is is a tax that everyone pays on their market transactions, and that's why, you can argue whether it's a very fair or unfair tax, but it's at least one that hits a wide variety of people. And it's actually the most important sync that we have in the game. So, the reason that maybe, or one reason the you would remove a tax cut like this one and put it back in is that you can then afford to run maybe another event, because it's the same thing whether you do a tax cut and everyone pays a little less on every market transaction, or you have once a year a Winter Nexus event where everyone gets showered in ISK for a short while, it's the same concept. And sometimes you have to decide, well, you know, even if it's the same outcome, what is going to have the bigger effect on the player base? And I imagine, that is something that you think about a lot in terms of game design, right, Okami?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you're in the matrix like you are, you're just like, I see Eve.
Yeah,
It's the same thing to you. But both of those things feel different to just a typical player, and I think especially newer players. Like
yeah,
the taxes are such an invisible thing. Like they just kind of happen to you, versus getting ISK from bounties from doing events and things feels good. So there's definitely an emotional element to it that we have to consider in design as well. And maybe it's a combination of both of those things ultimately that we have to play around with and to tweak during events. But emotions are a large part of, and psychology are a large part of what we have to deal with too. So
yeah.
um, definitely thinking about how both of those things land to everybody.
Yes, sometimes I'm amazed, like the realism of Eve sometimes hurts CCP as a game design company, because I hear this argument so often. I can't believe we have to pay, taxes. I can't believe there are taxes in a video game. Like how?
Mm,
And the reality is, you go to World of Warcraft, you go to Guild Wars 2, you go to pretty much any other MMO out there. The fees on the auction house or the exchange or whatever, they're much higher. So in Guild Wars 2, you're paying, I don't know, 10-15% on every transaction. And nobody talks about it because nobody expects the world to be that realistic. In Eve, it feels so real that people are like, no, why am I paying taxes? You know? And
yeah.
and that's to me such an, it's such an Eve thing that people sometimes they take real life arguments into the game, as they should, but it's just feels a little too real. And taxes
Mhm.
are a big
Yeah,
big part of that. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I just get a little side tangent here, like my whole game design career, I was basically taught don't use taxes. Taxes are bad game design. Like you shouldn't use them. And here I am on Eve designing taxes, and it's a really interesting place to be in, because taxes feel bad to people. Like they're sort of like anti-motivational in a way, but like um, they can be done. Like there might not be another way in Eve to have this level of sync rate, especially in such a player-driven economy, that they have to exist. And it's interesting to try to design with them when you've kind of had that notion in your mind most of your career, where you're like, tax is bad.
yeah. I mean, you would have to remove a lot of bounties and ratting revenue if you want to cut taxes by a lot in EVE Online. I think people would hate
Yeah.
that too.
Hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Getting towards the end of it, this is the money supply graph I was talking about. So it has been rising again. I think we I was very happy that we had kind of throughout 2025, it leveled off quite significantly. I think we've gotten a little spike now, but then again, I think especially Q4 with Crimson Harvest and Winter Nexus is a special quarter. So I don't expect this to keep rising as rapidly as it has in the last 2 months. And I'm not too concerned. A lot of this also has to do with players returning from the game and leaving the game. So
Yep.
a lot of the money supply actually sits in inactive and versus active accounts. And um, as I learned recently, there's the calculation of money supply is not always homogeneous across various data sources, and that's it's a 23-year-old game, so you will have a lot of wealth coming and a lot of wealth going and accumulating in different parts. So part of that is that's another dimension you've got to design around is, okay, so how many very rich veterans is this event going to bring back to the game?
Mhm,
Which
mhm.
Catalyst did quite a few. Catalyst slash pandemic horde collapse at the same time did.
Yeah,
You know, that was quite a perfect storm of I think of wealth coming of players returning to the game, and um, you know that's not something that you could have planned. But I guess it's if I were CCP, I'd always be happy about big things happening in the game that brings people back, right? Whether it's for them
yeah,
positive or negative, it's something happening.
yeah. I think I'd rather have them back if there's
Yeah.
an injection of wealth into the ecosystem. Great. If there's more hoarding, if there's new problems, amazing. There's just more work for us to do, right? Like we'll solve whatever happens next. But it's great that people are back and playing.
This is the velocity of ISK. So this is the speed at which every ISK exchanges hands. So over a 28-day period, how many times does an ISK exchange hand? You can see here that it's about zero point 0.5, and it's even less if you take out Plex and contracts. But uh, in the end, I think this would indicate that over the last, what is this, 10 years, people have just hoarded more than they did before. So they're
Mhm.
more reluctant to spend their ISK. That might have a ton of reasons, but is this like, are you aware of this? Is this like something that you're actively working against, or is this really just, well, there's more people, there's more veterans, there's more wealth, so why shouldn't velocity of ISK go down?
Yeah, we think about it for sure. It's definitely one of my cursed design problems in Eve too. I think being able to hoard and collect and hold on to things forever is very easy as well. And so um, and also the big challenge being like it's a sandbox and everything is in player hands. So we can't force that. Um, so this matters absolutely, and like I don't feel alarmed by it currently, but it is something that I think about as we are designing things.
Yeah, it's like I'm definitely not alarmed by it. I mean, since I've been streaming Eve, the velocity of ISK has gone down. I've been streaming for 6 years and been doing economic reviews every week, and it's been going down, and it's more that I think. I mean, there's a lot of economic theory around the velocity of ISK, but certainly I think the risk of inflation would be higher if the velocity was higher. So if people all of a sudden started throwing all of their ISK around, then certainly that would have an impact on inflation,
Mhm.
at least in
Yep.
theory. And so it's in a way, this is also an inflation hedge for sure. But
Yep.
on the other hand, you're also this also indicates you know less less transaction tax, as we were just talking about. If you have
Hmm.
more is going around, you will definitely have um, more sinks to work with, and then in the end, more faucets to give out.
Hmm. Yeah,
Do we get a guest
absolutely.
appearance, Okami? Do we get a
Yeah,
guest
I'm
appearance?
working on the guest appearance here. We
For
got
those of you, I
CCP
mean,
Doggo.
I
Yeah,
mean, for those of
for
you,
everybody.
I hope. Oh, look at that! I hope you all have seen CCP Doggy before. He was in
Down in
the
the mines with us
he was in the
in the
cave.
lava
Yeah,
cave. Yeah, that's
I
right.
watched every minute of that stream. That was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, it was
And
super
since
fun. It
I'm
was a little
seeing,
chilly, but super fun.
oh yeah, that's the good thing about watching it on stream. You don't feel the chill. But since I just saw CCP Jotun in chat, my favorite part
Oh,
was him standing around in the background while you had your interview, and he looked kind of lost.
yes.
A big man in a
Yeah,
cave.
CCP Doggo actually got a little spooked by that at one point, I think. The big man in the cave.
What a cute dog, really. Are you allowed to take him into the office?
I think technically we're not supposed to have pets there, but
Yeah.
I can break the rules once in a while.
Yeah, once it's like, I know you have a very family friendly office, at least I learned.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so this is a big one. Mineral price index. That
Hmm.
that has it has come down by, almost half, since it's arguably very high point in
Hmm.
2025. But this means, cheaper ships. This certainly, if you look at the history, this simply looks healthier, right? And I know
Hmm.
we had the scarcity period that you guys don't call scarcity, but yeah, the
Yeah.
mineral redistribution, the resource redistribution going on. Uh, what's the talk at CCP, or what's your design hat on MPI? Is this, at some point, sure, mining income drops, but it seems to not be stopping mining yet. Looking at the numbers, uh, on the other hand, everyone loves cheaper ships and modules, I think, except for traders
Mhm.
holding a lot of them. I Is this, how do you balance that mining income versus ship prices? That seems to be like a very difficult decision to make.
Yeah, it is a difficult decision. I think maybe there's this perfect world, this perfect equation where it all adds up in it and there's the correct number to hit, but
Probably.
we haven't found that yet. I wish it were that easy. To me, it's really about looking at these indices
I'm crying
both
my
together
pants
and
instead of peeing.
independently, and seeing like MPI, for example, was a problem. Like you could see that problem happening, and you really called that out for us, which is great. And so then it's like we have to do something about that. It's time, and you can see a trend there that needs to be tackled. Uh, and then it's also about like just listening to everyone and the players, and like, are people able to build the ships? Are they feeling like they're at a price where they're comfortable to take them out and go have a dread brawl or something? Because that's the funny. If they want to do that thing, that's fun. And if the prices and the effort to get into doing those fun things isn't there, then we need to look at it. So it's both the indices, um, and it's feedback, and it's just feelings sometimes too.
Somebody in chat is asking, what is MPI? That's a very good question. Uh, I get used to just hanging out with my economy nerds. That's the mineral
Mm.
price index. So this graph shows all the price indices that, granted, are defined by CCP, and some of them are make more sense than others, but especially the mineral price index, it simply looks at the basic minerals in game, or the basic and advanced minerals in game, from asteroid ore, and it looks at their price compared to the origin at 2004, and you see the huge spike, which is the resource redistribution that I was just talking about. And since then, especially over the last year, there's been a lot of measures introduced that have made the mineral prices drop, and it looks like it's not. You're looking at the current mining numbers, and especially this last month, it looks like it's not going to be the end of it. It looks like it's going to come down more. And to be frank, uh, one thing I should mention is it doesn't include moon materials, right? And so all of the Tech 2 production that you see, it it's not it's not only dependent, and it's mostly not dependent on the mineral price index. Part of it is, but it's mostly moon materials, and so that's why the you're seeing the primary producer index and the secondary producer index, which is the blue line and the green line, not spiking as hard, because they also depend on other components, not just materials. So not just minerals, and that's actually, I think the MPI is often looked at a little bit hysterical in the in the Eve community, because it looks like, oh my god, it looks like the Himalaya, but it's, it's a lot of tier one. So especially tier one production is dependent on the MPI. Everything after that is a lot of other components that, some are also high in price and some are lower. Um, but in the end, it's I think going towards a much healthier place where we were. And I I I have to I have to let you in on a secret, which you probably already know, Okami, but like when I look at mineral prices and the question of, is this going to make miners stop mining? Then the thing with so many miners is that nothing will stop them at mining, right? So
Yeah.
I think one of the miner profits' biggest enemy is miners. uh, it's the same with hauling, by the way, in this game. It's just like people complain that the reward and the profits are so low, but they continue doing the same thing because it's fun, which you can't
Yeah.
blame them either because it is a game. That's the big difference between reality and a video game is that, well,
Hmm.
if you like the activity of mining, then that is part of the reward, right? Like
Yeah.
that is part of the profit. Just like the space trucking fantasy is part of the profit of hauling in EVE Online, and that's again another dimension uh, you gotta you gotta balance around. And
Hmm.
if people would stop mining, if mineral prices would go down significantly, then the prices would actually balance. But in the end, it's not. That's not the only factor.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like what you kind of also touch on there is a part of game design is mastery, where it's like you have acquired a set of skills and a way of doing things over time that are to you fun or enjoyable, and like being able to log into the game and just kind of hit that flow state or hang out with your friends and do that thing, like that's what's giving you the little brain tickles. And so totally, like some people would stop mining, some people would probably go do something else, but it will never fully stop. It'll never get that bad, and it will kind of somewhat self balance too.
There are several things in the several activities in this game that I really enjoy that I do even though I don't need any ISK at all. And in the end, like I almost never do things that are completely not profitable just because, that's my personal dopamine hit. But,
Yeah, yeah.
something like Abyssals, for example, that thrill of getting loot and then getting it out in time is that hits a completely different part or that's a different dopamine hit for me than other
Hmm.
activities, and that's why I really and I really enjoy them. And, I totally get, well, if you have a fleet of, a Rorqual and 6 barges, and you've got that set up and you've done that for 10 years, then you're not gonna stop because this month the MPI went down, right? I mean, it's just that's just not gonna happen. If your
Yeah,
friends are out there mining and you're having beers, then that's what's gonna happen on that
totally.
Saturday evening. Alright, let's see, do we have anything? No, that's the same. I wanted to talk about this one. I mean, I don't really know the formula that goes into this. So this is looking at the actual price of modules and ships. So you know, I I'm going to just make a general observation here, and that is ship prices have dropped down significantly, which is unsurprising. But as I said
Hmm.
earlier, it's not just about minerals. This is also about moon materials that have dropped significantly from the introduction of Metanox, moon drills, for
Yep.
example. And it's also salvage that has also dropped in price quite significantly for the most part through new exploration sites in Null, for example. And so
Hmm.
overall, you know, prices are falling. A lot of it by design, I guess, right? And
Yep.
I don't think we've had at least I haven't heard from the community any negative feedback on, "Oh, it's dropping too quickly," or anything. So I personally think we're in a fairly good state, and even if prices drop further, I don't think we're going to face any larger issues that we would have if prices were rising. Is that what your understanding of the situation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think grateful to have you and folks like yourself on the CSM to kind of keep a finger to the wind as well, just in terms of sentiment and how people are feeling. But looking at this trend and the data, it all feels good. And really like coming back to the start of this, like the success we're seeing and the amount of people coming back and the amount of people playing, like says something that we're
Mhm.
kind of in a healthy spot. So we'll watch it, and as opposed to waiting if something does start to get to a bad place and having to make a bigger drastic change, we'll take a look at either a balance update and an expansion or a major update if that's the case. But happy with where things are, and not really planning on throttling or changing anything significantly soon.
Cool. Then I think in terms of the MER, we're done. I have
Did it.
awesome. Okami, I have I asked the community if they when I went live earlier if they wanted to submit questions on my Discord, and I have at least like two or three here that I would like to ask you if you are down for it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's try. Let's wing it.
Um. There. Uh. One question is about the state of HiSec. So I think we've we've had several null focused expansions.
Hmm.
We've had faction warfare or low sec expansions. It looks like it sounds like from the dev blog that the next expansions are also going to be a very much at least partly impacting faction warfare, right? Because that's what the
Hmm.
military campaigns sound like.
Yeah.
Um, What's your view on HiSec? Like, it can be very important to get people to initially join the game and to kind
Hmm.
of learn the ropes before they set out there. What what's your feeling on HiSec?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed it. I think that we've only really kind of come forward to talk about the military campaigns in the next set of expansions, but I think that players will also be seeing a lot of new and interesting changes to HiSec as well. Um, to me, it's kind of about creating this like funnel of complexity and safety for newer players who are coming into the game and trying to get them into the bigger sandbox. And so um HiSec is a really important place to catch a lot of people. And to be quite honest, looking at our data and stuff, there's a lot of people that just live there and just enjoy chilling out and being in HiSec and playing that game. So I'd love to, as we talked about PvE content and stuff earlier, really take a look at what that content looks like in the future. I don't really have a big, plan or roadmap I can reveal now, other than like it's kind of on my mind and something I'm thinking about. But yeah, there will definitely be some high sec changes coming up that I think will be impactful, and it's important.
The the fourth region that we haven't talked about would be wormholes. Then I know I know I heard somebody like one of the three of you said on the last director's video that you had. One of you said yes, you know, there will also be changes coming to wormholes because I know wormholers, do feel neglected a little bit by the most recent expansions. Is there anything you can talk about wormholes and what's coming there?
Sorry, could you remind me what a wormhole is? No.
Oh, we deleted them already, didn't we?
Yeah, sure. No, no. I know
Oh,
people
that's
feel
not
like that.
public
I'm
yet.
just
Yeah.
joking. Yeah, yeah. I'm just joking. Um, yeah, it's a tricky one because uh, we always have to just look at where people are at and what they're doing when we make these decisions. Should we have a full wormhole expansion at some point? Maybe. That might be cool. That's not happening right now, so we're looking at what are some meaningful ways we can, kind of give back to wormholes. Um, there's a lot of, like, I'm in the Wormhole Union Discord. There's a lot of really great ideas that continue to surface there. So some of the things that we'll see are just like there's just going to be more content. Some of it's content that we've used in interesting ways in the past that will be somewhat exclusive to wormholes. And then there are other just sort of balance changes that we're taking a look at. Maybe some changes around taxes and how taxes work in wormholes. Something I'm thinking about. And then like sort of future, facing vision is just like more Like when we started Wormholes, they were not meant to be habitable, but they are. So kind of just being like, okay, well, like how do we make that cool? So we can take a look at what how Sov works and say, like, can we have some sense of customization in there? So uh, those are the types of things we're talking about. That's not coming just yet, but we will definitely see things like balance changes, new content, and then just trying to figure out how we weave these other things into all the other work we're doing too.
Yeah, I think sometimes, sometimes it doesn't even have to be specific new wormhole content. It's just like when the new content hits to also apply to wormholes, which, in the past years, sometimes I think the community has felt a little bit neglected, which,
Yeah,
it comes with the
I
territory of
love my
wormholes.
wormholers. I actually really love wormholes personally. Like I play a lot in wormholes,
I do as well.
and yeah, I wish uh, there will come a day. That's all I can say, where you will get your rejuvenation or whatever. But like,
The R word.
yeah, yes, I'll break that one out every once in a while.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think a wormhole expansion would, like, when you're done with the next set of expansions, I think it could work really,
yeah,
really well, because it's always been, it sounds cool. It's always been this cool part of space. There's, it's unknown, and even for new players, I think it's this like daunting new place, and I think it could use some love. And I mean, I see Mick Fightmaster while we talking about him, the CSM rep for Wormholes. He put in the Discord channel for the question. Don't forget to make a comment about the lack of wormhole data in the MER, which I I will, and I have, but I know that you're not the one making those decisions, are you?
yes, no, I'm not. I mean, I can bug people, but it's where is my energy best spent is the question.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that
Designing things for wormholes or getting the wormhole data? Which one do you
I'm
want?
yeah, Mick wants the design, the
Yeah.
design part of that for sure. Um, I think, and you can't focus at everything at once. I think we've seen a lot of attention on the ESI lately, and there's been a lot of, there was a long backlog of things, and that team has, really really caught up on a lot of things, which is very, very
Mhm.
cool. And so, you know, um, I can deal with I understand, I fully understand that the MER, for example, is like an add-on. Like, it's not, it
Mhm.
doesn't it's a service. It doesn't impact the quality of the game directly. So I am, very courteous when I ask about things on the MER, or I request changes to the MER. But in the end, it's also part what makes Eve Eve, and what makes this
Yeah,
sandbox game so cool, that we have something like that. So we do appreciate it. Cool.
absolutely.
Um, Okami, I have a last question. The last question
Let's
is,
go.
I know you can't spoil anything, right? At least, but I know you also don't know fully what you have said and what you haven't said.
Mhm.
So, open question. For the next 3 years, or the next 3 expansions, this next set, um,
Mhm.
what are you most excited about? What concept, what content, what are you most excited about? What do you think is going to be the biggest game changer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think we're going to see a lot of just quality of life and uh, yeah, just good changes, just really obvious changes that should be done to the game. I think we're going to see some merging of old systems and things like that. But the new big one, like we have talked about, is campaigns. I think that I'm personally really excited about it. It's I haven't revealed everything just yet either.
Mhm.
More to come at FanFest. But not only for the experience that I think everyone as players can get from it. It's like one of the things that I really want more of in Eve is sort of how we can tell stories in Eve together between CCP and the players. And I'm excited for that. I know we've tried little things over the last few years with like Drifter Crisis and stuff like that. Um, but the things that excite me about games are and I know a lot of newer players too, is like intrinsically when you come in, you're not really thinking about that ISK power. You're thinking about like the fantasy of it and who people are and who these great empires are and what they're up to and how you can help and or hurt or whatever. And this is going to become like a super powerful tool for us as designers to be able to kind of inject some of that more strongly into the universe, tell more interesting stories, and it becomes an ongoing platform that we can kind of develop on top of over many years now, that will probably fundamentally change how our expansions are done and received and interacted with in a lot of ways. So it's pretty big stuff. I'm sorry, like there's not a lot of details in there, but
FanFest.
that is what I'm excited for. Yeah, FanFest. Come to FanFest.
Absolutely. I will definitely be there. I
Hell yeah.
um I I'm very excited for FanFest. There's a lot of new stuff happening, including the creator awards. We just found out about those, which is, exciting for obviously all creators, but I think it's also a very cool event and going to be
Yeah.
a cool ceremony. So looking forward to that.
Hell
Okami,
yeah.
thank you so much for spending your Saturday evening with us, partly. Uh,
Yeah, you got
thank
it,
you.
Us.
Would
Always
love
good.
to see you back very soon for MER talk or not, but let's please keep this going and looking forward to seeing you at FanFest.
Definitely, man. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you.